basically this generation is more liberal, more tolerant, more Democrat-leaning than the one before. It's not just because they're young.
For another point of view, it's Hard News with Russell Brown and Whammo on Kiwi.
Head honcho at publicaddress.net, also the Media 7 show, TVNZ7. Russell Brown, good morning, Russell.
Good morning.
First up this morning, boat people. John Key wants to get in bed with Gillard, so to speak, and set up some kind of detention centre for boat people in Timor. But I don't think we're that at risk from boat people here.
I don't think we are. I mean, it's one thing him agreeing on our behalf to look at taking people from this new processing centre in East Timor. Another thing to say that people smugglers are targeting New Zealand, because there's very little evidence of that. And really it's not an issue here. Clearly it was something that Julia Gillard had to cover off because it is such an issue in Australia, and the opposition would use it, certainly in their forthcoming election campaign, whenever that's going to be.
Yeah.
I don't really see why John Key had to say much, frankly, because all we had to do was say, yeah, we'll look at taking people from the centre. It's sort of interesting what they're doing. You would hope that what Gillard is proposing is not as brutal as the kind of places that persisted under John Howard, because I think they were a stain on Australia's reputation, particularly the ones in the desert in Australia. The detention centres were vile, and vile things happened at them. So,
do they still operate that one in Nauru?
Yes, and I think this is another one. Although it does appear that this one's not quite such an outlaw operation. The Australians did tend to do what they wanted in the Howard era, but this one I think will fit in with UN guidelines. Strange place to put it, Timor-Leste, where they're resettling people themselves still, but I suppose it brings in a little money to the economy there.
Yeah, indeed. On to another matter that you've been looking at. The Film Commission report has been handed back in from Peter Jackson, and you've been trawling over it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was a little surprised that no one had pointed out something that seems obvious to me, which is that what Peter Jackson has been proposing in this review is he's really looking for magic to happen again the same way it did for him, because when he was a young filmmaker making Bad Taste, a guy called John Booth, who was executive director of the Film Commission, kind of bent the rules a bit in order to get Peter Jackson some money to finish his first film. And that was because he had a real belief in Peter Jackson's genius. And he was right.
Yeah.
Whether you can build a model where staff are empowered to make those kinds of decisions without running some pretty significant political risks, I think is open to question. But
it's all about fostering talent, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But it's a tricky thing to do because, it's what big studios do, for that matter, record companies, back when they still mattered. But it's a difficult thing for a public agency to do because it's a speculative business, and asking public entities to speculate is to some extent asking for trouble when it goes wrong. But we did actually talk to Chris Finlayson's office, and he was the minister who ordered the review, and he's actually quite positive that something like what Peter Jackson and David Court want can actually be fitted, within a relatively conventional Crown entity structure. So maybe it'll happen. I thought one thing that puzzled me a little bit about the review is the word internet isn't mentioned at all.
Really?
And it's only alluded to once, and that's in a quote from an anonymous industry stakeholder. And you think, surely there are dimensions that need to be considered here.
As a distribution.
Changing every other intellectual property industry.
Yeah.
But I think that's maybe a reflection of where Peter Jackson's at as well. But it would be a shame if they don't do anything about that, because the Film Commission has been leery of the internet for as long as I can remember, and I think it's been actually a problem.
Hey, while we're talking about New Zealand film, I was watching the book show on TVNZ7 last night. It was a bit of a revelation, because there was an interview with C.K. Steed, author of Smith's Dream. He absolutely hated the movie version, which was Sleeping Dogs.
Right.
And I'd never heard that before. In fact, he kept that quiet all these years.
Yeah, I did not know that, actually. He has kept that quiet.
There's many elements to it that he despised, including them continuously saying bastard throughout the film. He hated that.
He's a grumpy old man,
Well,
isn't he?
He said he didn't want to rain on the film's success, and and a lot of people loved it, and so. But he thought that enough time has passed now that he can actually come out and say that he hated it.
Right, there you go. Because I can recall I was at school, and we got taken to see it.
Yeah. I remember.
Yeah, we didn't make a lot of movies, and this was an important political movie. So
No, it was.
taken to see it.
I remember studying it in English, the book and the movie as well.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Hey, thanks very much, Russell.
Okay, cheers. Next week.
Yep, that is.